Dark Eldars Part 4. Notable events. The history of the Drukhari is one of unrelenting horror. Much of it is hidden in shadow, recorded only in allegory and fable by those intelligent races whose worlds they have ravaged. Records are kept, however, tomes scribed in still living flesh using bladed quills of bone. These histories divide the tale of Commorragh into 3 ages, ill-defined and overlapping, though they are each more redolent with cruelty and evil than the last. The Age of Dark Genesis. The Port Commorragh. Approximately 18th millennium. Commorragh establishes itself as the primary nodal port of the Aeldari Webway, growing larger with every passing Terran decade. Built entirely within the Labyrinthine Dimension and hence outside the jurisdiction of the existing Aeldari Council, Commorragh acts as a magnet for those who wish to avoid attention. The Twilight Cults. Approximately between 18th and 20th millennium. Those leading the new Aeldari paradigm of total self-indulgence rise in status and power until they can secede entirely from the physical plane. They take up permanent residence in the Webway, from which they can plumb the depths of decadence undisturbed by puritans and weaklings. Over time, the sovereign estates grow into entire sub-realms, many of which are powered by the energy of stolen suns. The solar systems and their inhabitants plunge into darkness by the Eldari's star theft, wither and die in the freezing cold of the void, but the Eldar care not. The Ailing Pantheon. Approximately between the 19th and 24th millennium. The worship of the traditional Eldari gods beings to wane as new sects and societies rise to power. The Dark Muses, many of whom are synonymous with sensual vice and sin, become the unofficial figureheads of the new order. Darkness Rising. Approximately between 25th and 30th millennium. The depravity of the Aeldari race plumbs terrible new depths. Cults of pleasure and pain flourish in the hidden reaches of the Webway, and even the core worlds of Aeldari society become obsessed with ever greater acts of excess. As the lines blur between sensation-seeking and outright evil, a new force stirs in the warp. Exodus. Approximately between 30th and 31st millennium. Sensing the end, portions of the Aeldari people combine and modify their void ships into craft worlds, gigantic living vessels able to accommodate an entire planet's population. One by one they begin to escape the corruption that plagues their empire. Hundreds of craft worlds sail into the sea of stars in search of the relative safety of the untrammeled void. The fall of the Aeldari. The same time as Exodus. A new chaos god is born, collapsing the entire Eldari empire, Slanesh, the Dark Prince, whose birth screams tear out the heart of the empire and leave pure chaos in its place. The shockwave of the new god's apotheosis plunges a vast section of real space into the warp, creating the Eye of Terror. Most of the Aeldari craft worlds are destroyed in the psychic backlash. Only the Exodites, the Aeldari of the farthest flung craft worlds, and those hidden in the sub-realms of the Webway survive. The Aeldari species is shattered forever in a single apocalyptic instant. Commorragh Ascendant. Approximately between 31st and 32nd millennium. In the wake of the fall, the unrepentant Aeldari hidden within the Webway consolidate the power. The next millennium sees the port cities and sovereign realms of the Labyrinth Dimension grow steadily in size and influence, and Commorragh becomes a sprawling realm unto itself. The Dark City thrives under the oppressive rule of the noble houses that lurk at its heart, known to the other Aeldari survivors of the fall as the Dark Ones, or Drukhari. The rise of Vect. A legacy begins. Approximately in the 32nd millennium. A half-born Drukhari slave known only as Vect vows that he shall rule the Dark City, even if it takes an eternity to do so. Vect founds the Cult of the Black Heart, the first organization to openly refer to themselves as Labyrinthinians or Dark Eldar. The 13 foundations of vengeance are laid down at this time, an intricate code of dishonor destined to spread through the society of the Dark City in the centuries to come. The impact of Vect's rise to power will resonate through Commorragh's history for millennia to come. The War of the Sun and the Moon. Approximately in the 33rd millennium, the solar cults that control the Dark City's stolen suns rise in power and influence, ultimately declaring war upon the Druhari noble houses that would see Commorragh plunged into permanent night. An aerial war rages for centuries, but ultimately the noble houses emerge victoriously. Vect's Cult of the Black Heart transforms to become the first true Druhari cabal during this troubled time and is instrumental in the final defeat of the solar cults during the Battle of the Seven Shrouds. Vect Ascendant. Approximately in the 35th millennium, Asdrubal Vect launches a series of punishing raids against the Imperium's shipping lanes in the Desiderian Gulf. True to his plans, this triggers a punishing counter-attack from 3 chapters of the Adeptus Astartes. Vect manipulates the invasion to cripple the power bases of the patrician archons and, in the aftermath, takes the place as ruler of High Commorragh. Shortly after, the Desiderian portal into the Webway is forcibly collapsed, triggering a massive implosion and annihilating Imperial naval elements mustering for a second attack. The Cabal's Ascendant. Approximately between 35th and 36th millennium, the ancient Aeldari aristocracy of Commorragh is in disgrace. It is soon replaced by the Cabalite system, as pioneered by Vect and his Cabal of the Black Heart. Privilege and status are supplanted by sheer ambition and murderous capability. Many Elder Druhari noble houses reinvent themselves as cabals, though they never forgive Vect for usurping the power. The Breaching. Approximately in the 37th millennium, Vect causes the hidden portals that link each Druhari satellite realm and port city of the Webway to be revealed, forcing them open and building the Great Gates, huge edifices that are permanently guarded by Vect's elite Incubi and Cabalite warrior garrisons. Over several millennia of civil war and violent strife, Commorragh expands into these once autonomous regions of the Webway until they become integral to the Dark City. Only the realm of Shardom remains autonomous. The Age of Pain. The Ghost Planet. In the 156th year of the 35th millennium, the far-flung Hive-World Auxilium stubbornly maintains radio silence after its sun-sanctioned decision to hire Eldar mercenaries, though after one diplomatic gaffe too many the alliance turns sour. Led by the human-killers Crest-Hekia, a carnival of pain descends upon the planet. 5 years later, a large-scale Imperial delegation is sent to investigate the lack of forthcoming tithes. When they make planetfall, they find no trace of human life signs whatsoever. The entire planet, every hive, hab block, and spire is completely deserted. The battle for the Thaxar Rift. In the 745th year of the 35th millennium, the Severed begins to plunder the region of space known as the Thaxar Rift. They find their efforts hindered by chaos-worshipping renegades who have a substantial presence in the region. Rather than face the renegades directly, Archon Ariensis ensures that his foes come to the attention of the Imperial Navy and Adeptus Astartes, and a grinding war ensues. The Severed haunt the edges of this conflict, tales of murderous ghosts and Xenos pirates spreading like wildfire in their wake while they test and study the Imperium's way of war. Eventually, the Imperium's forces are reduced to a shadow of their former might. They are forced to resort to selective exterminators to annihilate what remains of the traitor foes. While the doomed world still smolder, the Severed descend in full force. They annihilate the surviving Imperial Navy warships left behind to watch over Thaxari space before proceeding to plunder and pillage it. Vex gift. In the 677th year of the 36th millennium, Asdrubael Vect tricks his would-be rival Archon Kelethresh into opening a casket that has ostensibly been presented as a tile. Held precariously in the collapsing field of the casket is the unstable essence of a black hole. Kelethresh's entire realm is plunged into a howling, yawning vortex. The Black Conquest of Yaelindra. In the 724th year of the 36th millennium, Yaelindra of the Blackentir uses her preeminent grasp of the arts of Shimesh to poison an entire imperial hive world. Even as the populace of Tibor III are withering into desiccated husks, Yaelindra is granted a boon by Asdrubael Vect. She chooses to take a spire of her own in High Commorragh, founding the witch cult of Lamar and training an army of deadly courtesan warriors to further her deadly works. The Plague of Glass. In the 926th year of the 36th millennium, the noted Commorrite artisan Jalaxla is fated for his incredibly lifelike black glass statues of Dark Eldar. His rivals soon discover that he is using an isolated viral helix to create his masterpieces from living victims. In the fight to control this deadly virus, it is accidentally released, running rampant through several districts of the Dark City. This plague of glass is eventually contained and weaponized by the Hex, whose Heman Cully are intrigued by its artistic possibilities. The slow death of Grigas. In the 345th year of the 37th millennium, the Cabal of the Poison Tongue comes into conflict with a fleet of orc freebooters stationed out of Grigas. Lady Aurelia Males is incensed that mere barbarian pirates should deny her will. Personally capturing a muscle-bound orc-nob, Males instructs her Limian poisoners to prepare a surprise for the Greenskins upon Grigas. Lady Mala's Cabal makes planetfall weeks later, fighting their way into the center of the Orc capital city and impaling the barely living captive upon a half-built gargant before melting away into the night. The corpse begins to shed millions of spores into the air, each of which bears a cargo of terrible wasting toxins. As the infected spores corrupt the orcoid reproduction cycle, the population of Grigas grows weaker and weaker. When Males returns, it is a simple matter to slaughter the survivors. First War in the Webway. In the 579th year of the 37th millennium, a coven of thousand sun sorcerers from the Kindled Spirits Thrall Band conducts a great ritual in the Webway, hoping to gain access to the scream-filled city of Commorragh, the home of the Druhari. Before their ritual is complete, hundreds of Druhari, led by troops of Harlequins, pour from an invisible portal and launch themselves at the Rubricade defending the coven. With their spell sundered, the Kindled Spirits counter-attack the blasts of warp flame, eventually breaching the fabric of the Webway itself. As the arterial walls of the Webway buckle and collapse outwards, the backlash strands the combatants in a shattered pocket reality with no way out. There are whispers that the fighting has continued ever since, and that each warrior is fated to die and be reborn in an endless cycle for the rest of time. The Tower of Flesh. In the 796th year of the 37th millennium, the Heman Cully stronghold known as the Tower of Flesh has created a living, breathing fortress made of the bodies of those who defied the Heman Cully Coven of the 13 Scars. The renegade space marine Fabius Baal is tutored in the dark arts within its blood-slicked halls. Baal is accompanied to the Dark City by Lucius the Eternal, who is declared by his hosts, the witch cult of the Wrath Unbound, to be endlessly entertaining both on and off the arena floor. The Blade of Vect. in the 984th year of the 37th millennium. The sub-realm of Shardom grows steadily in influence and power until Archon Eluriak, the self-proclaimed Emperor of Shardom, declares himself more worthy of a rule than Asdrubael Vect. Vect publicly vows that all of Shardom will feel the edge of his blade, much to the amusement of Eluriak's famously well-funded and elite forces. 3 solar days later, a warp rift opens suddenly above the satellite realms and a burning Imperial Navy battleship thunders downward, plunging deep into the hidden city's heart before its warp drive detonates. The palace fortress of Eluriak is torn apart. The warp rift allows demons to invade the city, and in a matter of a single solar week, the devil-haunted realm of Shardom is reduced to cinders. Vect is reported to have allowed himself a rare smile at the moment of its fall. The last act of Lord Korsht. In the 182nd year of the 38th millennium, Inquisitor Lord Korsht of the Ordo Xenos second guesses the Dark Eldar raid upon the imperial industrial world of Damwan. The moment the Cabal of Immortality denied blinks into existence above Damwan's capital, they are all but annihilated in a thunderous firestorm. Korsht's absence is keenly felt at the post-action debrief, however, and the Inquisitor Lord's underground fortress complex is investigated. His remains are found, spread thinly upon every page of every occult tome in his library. War-Zogged. In the 227th year of the 38th millennium, the Orc warlord Zogged, famous for killing anyone foolish enough to imply he might be a bit of a weird boy, declares war straight into the vermilion space rift encroaching upon the world of Zogdis. He and his boys emerge in the Commorragh port spar of black blood, much to the surprise of its resident Cabal. The resultant storm of violence carries hundreds of thousands of orcs into the twisting byways of Commorragh. War is joined in earnest when the Dark City turns its attention to the Orcoid invasion, systematically isolating each orc army in order to destroy it piece by piece. However, each Cabal is preoccupied by trying to turn the unexpected invasion to its advantage, that the orcs cause far more damage than any of the Cabals thought possible. Several districts of Commorragh are toppled or burned to cinders by wave upon wave of howling orcs. Eventually, the orcs are corralled and over 10,000 greenskins are captured by the witch district's packed to capacity for almost an entire fortnight. Beauty relinquished. In the 717th year of the 38th millennium, a new fashion sweeps the spars of Commorragh, and soon every member of the noble houses has paid to have himself horribly disfigured. The suddenly fashionable Heman Cully consider it to be a very good year, but the trend is predictably short-lived. The time of reparations proves even better for business, and suspicions abound. Pandaemon betrayed. In the 799th year of the 38th millennium, the transdimensional satellite realm of Pandaemon declares independence from Commorragh, instantly triggering a great war between Archon Chu, Lord of the Iron Thorns, and the Cabal of the Black Heart. Chu is ready for Vec's attack, but not for the treason of his own daughter, who reveals herself as one of Vec's many courtesans. Civil war rages for solar weeks, but ultimately the realm of Pandaemon is delivered into Vec's hands. A gruesome lesson. In the 933rd year of the 38th millennium, during the prolonged campaign for Masgrave, the 121st Cadian elite, famed across the Ultima Segmentum as the Eldar killers, disappear completely without so much as a comm signal. Weeks later, thousands of headless and armless human bodies with Imperial Eagle tattoos are found roaming aimlessly along the arched streets of Commorragh's Vault district, moaning, staggering and bumping into each other before being put out of their misery by Hellion hunter gangs. Desperation's end. In the 272nd year of the 39th millennium, the imperial frontier planet of Desperation unwittingly sows the seeds of its own demise when it sends an astropathic message detailing an invasion of Hellspawn. In fact, Desperation has been chosen as the theater for the latest unveilings of the Children of Bone, a clique of Heman-Cully who specialize in unusually large grotesques. After the desolation of the planet's cities, the Heman-Cully disappear with holocaptures of their vile creations at work. Years later, the rescue voyage ships that entered Desperation's orbit determine the natives of the planet to be heretical beyond recovery, for they now worship the Children of Bone instead of the Emperor. The natives fight with frenzied tenacity, for they fear the Heman-Cully far more than the Imperium's troops, but nonetheless the world is completely purged within the space of a solar week. The Thieves of the Ice Mists. In the 616th year of the 39th millennium, upon the ice-locked planet of Fenris, aspiring space wolves recruits begin to disappear during the trial of Morkai. Each aspirant has been implanted with the gene seed of lemon rust, and only the strongest have an iron will enough to prevent it from ravaging the bodies and effect permanent devolvement into beasthood. The wolf priests notice that an unprecedented number of these aspirants are going missing and, after fruitlessly patrolling the wilderness of Asserheim, focus the scrutiny on near space. Sure enough, a dark Eldar fleet is stationed above the ice caps of the neighboring planet of Midgarden. The space wolves mount a lightning invasion upon the Midgarden ice caps, their thunderhawks descending on tongues of flame to bring the last remaining Xenos there to battle. The space wolves fight with the fury of the storm, but soon enough the Heman-Cully covens garrisoned there fade away into the mists, their mocking and distant laughter receding into nothing. The space wolves find a series of white-capped chambers leading deep down into the planet's crust. Each is empty of life, empty, that is, save for witless broods of bulging muscle and fur incarcerated in tubular pods, some of whom resemble the Primarch Rus himself. The space wolves do not speak of this day. The dark within the light. In the 117th year of the 40th millennium, the veiled crypto-scientist Vorsh perfects a technique he calls photonic transubstantiation, transforming himself into a living beam of light and traveling distances purely in order to proclaim his genius. He is eventually captured in a prism trap by the Cabal of the Black Sun, who use Vorsh's technologies to stage large-scale terror attacks upon the peace-loving Naiad Republic. The Hunters hunted. In the 835th year of the 40th millennium, Duke Sliskus is hunted by the Groavian Fiends, an elite reptilian bounty hunter cadre who have a reputation completely annihilating the targets. Sliskus instructs his agents upon the Groavian flagship Last Chance to place a device of the Duke's own invention in the metal belly of the craft. Just as Sliskus is about to pass through an ancient Webway portal, it seems that game is up. The Last Chance emerges from a gas cloud in hot pursuit, guns blazing, and follows it into the Webway. The Duke's ship emerges above the homeworld of the Groavians, primes and ready for planetfall. The flagship Last Chance, its navigational coordinates corrupted by the device placed amidships, emerges in the blazing heart of Grovia's sun. A gauntlet thrown. In the 226th year of the 41st millennium, Lelith Hesperax issues a challenge to the Dark City. Should anyone produce an inhabitant of real space that can pose a genuine challenge in the arena, that individual will be honored beyond their wildest dreams by Hesperax herself. The competition sparked by this challenge is immediate, violent and widespread. Archons lead raiding parties to strike at the length and breadth of the material realm, returning with ever mightier champions and deadlier monsters trammeled in their holds. Yet Hesperax defeats every victim brought before her, carving down hissing Terran and hive tyrants, chopper-wielding orc war bosses and righteously indignant space marine heroes with equal ease. Archon Cargill of the Bleak Seal Brethren finally presents Hesperax with a foe that can answer her challenge. In an especially daring and costly raid, Cargill has kidnapped brother Captain Cadulon of the Iron Knight Space Marine chapter. Known as the Saint of Blades, Cadulon is an exceptionally talented swordsman who has twice been declared victor at the ritual Feast of Blades. As Hesperax meets his eye across the arena floor, she knows she faces a worthy foe. With a predatory grin, the belladonna of the Dark City goes to work, her blades ringing against Cadulon's sword in a blizzard of sparks to the maddened roar of the crowd. The duel lasts for over 6 solar hours before Cadulon finally falls, leaving Hesperax victorious with but a single, bloody cut across her midriff. Amid the sudden hush, Archon Cargill descends to the arena floor to accept his reward. Yet his look of triumph curdles as Lilith kicks the fallen Space Marine's blade across the floor to land at the Archon's feet, explaining that the greatest honor she can bestow is the deadly kiss of her knives. To the amusement of the crowd, Cargill is lucky to last 6 solar minutes. The Coup Demons. In the 248th year of the 41st millennium, the vainglorious Archon Wiseclythe of the Cabal of the Talons Syriax, the last descendant of a pure-blooded lineage that had lasted for thousands of standard years, bridles against the tyrannical dictates of Asdrubal and his forbiddance of old empire knowledge. Deciphering the archaic rites inscribed upon the crypts below his palace, he learns how to contact demons of the warp and bind them to his will. Though his plan takes almost a century to come to fruition, Wiseclythe stages his coup against Vect with shocking and unstoppable force. Under the soaring skycraft of his cabal comes a ravening demonic host that drives all life before it. Before the horde can wreak too much damage, Vect activates an ancient fail-safe and completely seals off the spur of Talons Syriax from the rest of Commorragh. It is not long before Archon Wiseclythe finds out that his control over his demonic allies is not as complete as he imagines. Trapped with only the demon legions for company, Wiseclythe and his cabal is slowly torn apart. The Reaving of Garmos. In the 312th year of the 41st millennium, the Garmos system is plunged into a war between the Imperium and the Orcs of Wardef Smasher. Throughout the conflict, the Coven of the Dark Creed and the Cabal of the Bladed Lotus lead raiding parties to prey on both sides. They subtly tip the balance of power back and forth, extending the war far past its natural duration and reaping the harvest of fear and misery that results. The Dancing Dead. In the 327th year of the 41st millennium, the insane Archon Thindrak of the Last Hatred launches a raid on the Imperial hive world of Tamantres Folly. During fierce fighting between her Cabalite forces and the Talan 8th Infantry, Archon Thindrak abducts the planet's tyrannical governor and his entire sadistic household. Within the cycle, the luckless abductees have been fitted with neural restraints, dressed in improbable and torturous finery, and installed in life support tubes built into the ceiling of Archon Thindrak's head ballroom. Trapped in an agonizing half-life, the Imperial nobles can be lowered down to the Archon's dance floor at will on wheezing brass armatures, their mere presence leaving the hall awash with an aura of pain and misery that the Commorrahites find most refreshing. Needless to say, Thindrak's new toys are something of a coup, her guests delighting in dancing and frolicking with the whimpering humans amid the mocking laughter of their peers. The Raven's Prey. In the 394th year of the 41st millennium,
The Cabal of the Obsidian Rose suffers an unacceptable defeat when they are overwhelmed by the armored might of the Cadian 346th Regiment, the Ironheads, on the mining planet of Greystar. Determined to save face, Archon Chromis orders diversionary attacks against key points all across the planet. While battle rages, a single squadron of Voidraven bombers crafted by Chromis herself for just such an occasion swoops undetected into the primary spoil shaft of the northern polar mines. Hurtling through narrowing tunnels and jinking between slab-sided industrial machinery, the Voidraven's superior systems see them reach the deepest extent of the mine workings. Here, dangerously close to Greystar's molten heart, they deploy a trio of masterwork void mines that trigger an apocalyptic chain reaction. Even as the Voidravens hurtle to safety, the Obsidian Rose retreats to the Webway laden with slaves and plunder. In their wake, Greystar tears itself to pieces, billions dying along with the planet in order to satisfy Chromis' need for revenge. The Plague of Becoming. In the 399th year of the 41st millennium, a narcissist without equal, Archon V. Hain-Kaihak of the Black Myriad releases the doppelganger virus on the planet of Phlogiston 6. This transmorphic plague rewrites the biology of every living creature on the planet, forcing its features to reform in the likeness of their alien conqueror. Steel Fang. In the 421st year of the 41st millennium, a nameless messenger butchers the inner council of Craftworld Lugganath, smashing apart a statue of Ken and using the shards as deadly weapons. Fleeing into the Webway with a holocapture of her murderous deed, the young warrior calling herself Steel Fang is welcomed by the witch cults of the Dark City. She soon founds her own cult, and her teachings in the art of improvised weaponry spread throughout the arenas of Commorragh. Fear the Shadows. In the 462nd year of the 41st millennium, the Cabal of the Black Heart strike at the hive world of Lapradis, but are held back in disarray by the intervention of Titans from the Legio Castigatum. Mere solar days later, Princeps Gendeth, the author of Castigatum's victory, is murdered on his own bridge. He is hacked to shreds within his amniotic tank by hissing horrors that slither into being amid the thrashing soup. The murky shapes disappear as suddenly as they struck, leaving only a half-frozen mulch of blood and shattered armglass in their wake. Just beyond the door, in the 346th part of the 497th year in the 41st millennium. It is on this date that word reaches Asdrubael Vect of a disturbance at Kyne's Gate. Something has begun to pan slowly, rhythmically, impossibly on the other side. Vect stations 500 incubi to watch over the gate chamber as a delaying measure. He pays exorbitant sums to ensure the discretion, while simultaneously ensuring all those incubi hired hail from brotherhoods who have defied or hindered his machinations in the past. As further insurance, Vect deploys several of his more esoteric arcane weapons within the chamber itself, ingenious fail-safes that include temporal flux mines, the seventh shard, and a triprismic dimensional mirror key to hurl anything reflected in its surface into the heart of a sun. The Veiled War. In the 518th year of the 41st millennium, the witch cult of the Red Grief engages the warriors of Craftworld same hand in the battle over a broken alliance. The war is fought at breakneck speeds through the cloud archipelagos of the planet Stratos, where visibility is almost zero and the smallest misstep threatens a deadly plunge into the void ocean far below. The warring Eldar factions are eventually forced to disengage by the onset of a vast superstorm, leaving scores unsettled and bad blood festering between them. The Harvest of Chogros. In the 543rd year of the 41st millennium,
The Cabal of the Broken Sigil begins a series of raids on the planet Chogros, capturing the Ogren natives for the arenas. When Astra Militarum regiments arrive to intervene, the conflict escalates into a planet-wide engagement. Though they fight hard, the men of the Imperium are eventually defeated. The Crucible is thronged for many nights to come as the captured Imperial Guardsmen are forced to fight the very Ogrens that they were sent to save. The enemy beyond. In the 601st year of the 41st millennium, the Incubi standing guard over Kind's Gate report new and disturbing developments to Asdrubael Vect. In accompaniment to the slow, relentless pounding, the gate has begun to vibrate at the microscopic level. Worse, those who stand too close to the portal report hearing whispered voices. Though he shows no outward signs of concern, Vect continues to lay new plans. The Shadow Hunt. In the 626th year of the 41st millennium, the Cabal of the baleful gaze and witch cult of the Wrath Unbound crippled the infrastructure of the imperial industrial world of Derondas II using sustained haywire bombing. The cult then lands great packs of hunting beasts, Commorragh and clawed fiends, the beasts loping through the darkened streets and tearing the planet's defenders to shreds. Buried in darkness, weapons fried and transportation crippled by the haywire bombs, the terrified Astra Militarum and their civilian charges are forced to fall back time and again. The hunted survivors are finally herded together in the Templum district of Deronda's capital city. Here the Dark Eldar Beastmasters lose the feral pets en masse, beginning a horrifying massacre that takes several long and bloody solar days to conclude, and from which no human emerges alive. The Panacea Wars. In the 824th year of the 41st millennium, Vect sets his Archons a seemingly impossible task: poison the Imperium of Man, and bring proof of the deed. Lady Maelys proves equal to the task. Through the Harlequins she has learned that the tech priests of Verdigris 9 have recovered an STC codenamed the Panacea, a miracle cure that could save billions of human lives. Using hit-and-run raids, Mal's Cabal of the Poison Tongue lure the might of an Orc war down upon the heavily defended Forge world. The Orc fleet literally plows headlong into Verdigris 9, one massive void ship after another slamming into the world's surface to cause untold destruction. The Orc fleet literally plows headlong into Verdigris 9, one massive void ship after another slamming into the world's surface to cause untold destruction. As wave upon wave of Orcs disembarks from their wrecked spacecraft, the planet's surviving defenders find themselves embroiled in a desperate war for survival. Maelys and her Cabal swoop into the midst of the resultant havoc, cutting down anyone who stands between him and the prize. After prying the Panacea template from the gnarled fingers of the Orc Big Mech who had stolen it before her, Maelys returns to the Dark City, leaving Verdigris 9 to burn in her wake. Asdrubael Vect is reportedly impressed with this audacious raid, even as Maelys is setting the Imperium's miracle cure atop a pedestal in her personal trophy hall. She receives an invitation from Vect to dine with him by way of congratulations. The Nobility Resurgent 842. M41. Descendants of the Eldar noble houses deposed during Vect's ascension. Archons Exalian, Kralak and Ilithian attempt a coup. They successfully resurrect the ancient Archon Elaric, once Emperor of Shardom and the last individual to present a genuine challenge to Vect's supremacy. However, the schemes go horribly awry, leading the Dark City into a period of strife unlike any it has seen for thousands of Terran years. As a result of their actions, a mighty demonic disjunction shakes Commorragh to its very foundations and forces Asdrubael Vect himself to take drastic action lest his city slip into oblivion altogether. The Vandrad Atrocity. In the 864th year of the 41st millennium, Archon Thisk leads his cabal of the Bloody Storm against Vandred, a feudal world from which the Angel Sanguine Space Marine chapter recruits new aspirants. Sure enough, a strike force of Angel Sanguine makes planetfall within solar days, yet they're playing into the Archon's hands. Thisk releases a blood plague acquired at great cost from the human cult Coven of the Altered, a virus that taps directly into the tragic gene curse of Sanguinius's sons. Aware of their madness but unable to stop themselves, the Angel Sanguine butcher and devour those they came to save before falling upon each other, while the Dark Eldar drink in the agony, terror, and despair. The Long Midnight. In the 891st year of the 41st millennium, the last hatred ravages the imperial hive world Persia in a 6-cycle-long siege, using arcane technologies to bring pitch darkness to its principal hives and sending mandrakes and yorghuls into its confines. Many hive workers go mad with terror but are taken back to Commorragh nonetheless. It is claimed that during this siege, Caradroag the Decapitator selects an unprecedented 7 worthy skulls for his macabre lair. The War of Dark Revelations. In the 990th year of the 41st millennium, Tau forces defending Vigos against the onrushing might of Hive Fleet Kraken make the fatal decision to ally themselves with Urain Rakath. Despite initial victories alongside the Twisted Allies, the Tau soon become alarmed by Rakath's demands that they engage in ever more costly cultural exchanges. They finally resolve to strike back when he transforms Tau warriors into monstrous grotesques and begins demanding a tribute of their sacred ethereals. The Tau muster their reserves from the world of Rubicon, yet when the blow falls they find Rakath's fleet already gone, leaving only holograms and sensor ghosts in its wake. Panic distress calls begin to issue from the defenseless Rubicon mere solar hours later. These garbled reports tell of twisted, pale-fleshed invaders calling themselves the Prophets of Flesh. Yet it is far too late for the woefully outmaneuvered Tau forces to respond, and they can only listen in anguish to the death cries of their world. The Age of Plenty. As the 41st millennium draws to a close, the galaxy is riven with war as never before. Madness and mayhem consume whole star systems, affording the denizens of the Dark City ample chance to raid at will. Yet there are those who whisper that even Commorragh is not proof against the horrors that draw near. Everything happened in 41st millennium. Vex Declaration. In the 994th year, Asdrubal looks upon the war-racked galaxy and declares this to be an age of plenty. The races of real space are beset by woes, the civilizations battling a never-ending tide of enemies, each more monstrous than the last. Vect orders his lieutenants to take advantage of the galaxy's worsening plight to strike wherever the lesser races are spread too thin and pillage unopposed. Slaves and riches flow into Commorragh in a tide, and the Dark Eldar revel in their own unmatched might. However, all of this is but a distraction, albeit on an unimaginably vast and complex scale. While Vex subjects glad themselves upon the hapless peoples of the material dimension, their eyes are turned outward, away from the dark deeds of their ruler. An unexpected ally. In the 995th year, the craftworld of Ayandan, struggling to survive after its horribly narrow victory over Hive Fleet Kraken, is forced to engage Dwar Rekfast in order to prevent Ayandan from being invaded again. Early engagements cause rippling damage on the Greenscan Empire, but the Orcs counterattack in force. Ayandan is left with no choice but to disturb more and more of their revered ancestors from the deathly slumbers and place the spirit stones into mighty ghost warriors in order to contain the counter-invasion. Just as all seems lost, the Wraithkind Cabal and the Cult of the Flayed Hand burst through the Webway portal at the Craftworld's rear. Fighting alongside Ayandan's Aspect Warriors and the Ghost Warrior allies, the Dark Eldar drive off the Orcs. When asked by Ayandan's Council of Seers as to why they intervened, the Dark Eldar reply that they find Ayandan's angst-ridden forays into the world of necromancy extremely entertaining. Danger unseen. In the 996th year, in the Undercore, the phenomena that beset Kind's Gate become ever more pronounced. Many of the strange portal's guards have been driven mad by the whispering voices that now pervade the gate chamber. Those who have not hacked each other apart or taken their own lives have begun carving letters into the walls of the chamber, some scratching this unsettling mantra directly into the flesh. The air of the chamber shimmers with half-glimpsed shapes, while mandrakes and shadow ravens gather in increasing numbers in the tunnels around and about. Overlord Vect continues to suppress knowledge of these phenomena with cruel efficiency, while quietly relocating ever more of his own power base to hidden sub-realms behind multiple, well-guarded portals. A number of Archons who had believed the Cabals out of favor are delighted when Vect presents them with reconciliatory gifts of prime territory, ceded from the ownership of the Cabal of the Black Heart and located directly above the Undercore. Rakath's Larder. In the 998th year, Urian Rakath recognizes similarities between his kin's frenzied reaving of real space and the blood-mad days that led up to the fall. Ancient beyond mortal comprehension, Rakath still dimly recalls that apocalyptic event. His memories are enough to prompt him to precautionary action, though Rakath has no interest in the survival of either real space nor his own race. Without the living resources that both provide, his personal quest for depravity would come to a crashing end. Thus the Human-Killers begin stockpiling what he views as raw materials, leading raids to seize vast quantities of slaves and dragging him back to the oubliettes in chains. As the scale of his raiding operations increases, Rakath enlists the aid of several powerful covens, including the Black Descent, the Coven of 12 and the Prophets of Flesh. These monstrous cliques claim new sub-realms within the Webway and begin to fill them with countless ranks of stasis pods that fade away for miles into the gloom. Each contains a living being, stolen from real space in order to stock the vile larders of the human cully against hard times to come. Warp Surge. In the 924th part of the 999 year, a mighty storm front rolls through warp space, plucking at the edges of the Labyrinthine Dimension. Arterial passageways shudder uncontrollably while smaller, more damaged offshoots tear or collapse altogether. Kind's Gate glows white-hot for several moments, and one of the mighty chains that bind it snaps with a sound like a thunderclap. At the exact same moment, every single portal within the dark city flickers out and then comes back to life, plunging hundreds of thousands into limbo or tearing him apart in transit. The Dark City is soon in an uproar, and demands that Overlord Vect take action to prevent a full-blown disjunction become ever louder. Vect suspects the hand of Lady Melis in this agitation, but his attempts to procure proof are foiled by troops of harlequins that appear from nowhere to slay Vect's agents or abduct his informants. Stealing the Void. In the 978th part of the 999 year, the Cabal of the Black Heart and the Witch Cult of Strife lead a massive raid against the Imperial Navy moorings at Bacca. The attack causes immense destruction and leaves a swathe of the Imperium open to further raids, yet this is merely a byproduct of Vect's true purpose. While the bulk of the raiding forces are fully engaged with the Imperial Navy, a small Dark Eldar force breaks away under the cover of advanced night shields. Led by Vect himself with Lelith Hesperax at his side, this force assails the inquisitorial stronghold concealed behind Baccha's third moon. In the ensuing battle, the Black Heart successfully kidnaps a handful of very special Imperial personnel. Aberrant anti-psychic mutants. The very presence of these so-called nulls deadens the tides of the warp and is anathema to the demons of chaos. The nulls are smuggled into the depths of the Dark City, destined for grotesque machines arranged around the undercore. Yet, though the luckless mutants are moved with the greatest care and secrecy, Vect's plan does not go entirely unnoticed, for the eyes of Lady Meleys are everywhere. The Great Eye opens. In the 995th part of the 999 year. The 13th Black Crusade surges from the Eye of Terror, Imperial and Allied armies flooding from across the Imperium to oppose it. Kabbalite raids descend upon real space in the thousands to take advantage of the mayhem, yet now the battle is also joined in the Dark City. Through arcane channels, Lady Meleys has learned of the developing situation around Kyne's Gate. Fearing that Vect plans to intentionally trigger its opening and drown his rivals in demons, the Archon of the Poison Tongue activates assets all across the Dark City. Waves of empiric energy roll from the Eye of Terror to Port Commorragh, collapsing sub-realms and breaching portals. Bands of Kabbalites, witches, and harlequins loyal to Meleys or Vect engage in increasingly bitter skirmishes around the undercore, oblivious to the irony that both factions are fighting to achieve the same end. Meanwhile, in a chamber filled with swirling madness, hairline cracks spread across Kyne's Gate, and the caged nulls begin to scream.